Okay, so at some point in time you're going to have to wind your yarn up into a ball. There's a couple different ways to do that. Back here you have a couple different stages of a center pull ball, anywhere from just a few feet scrap left over all the way up to basically about a half of the skein, about 4 ounces there. And then you have what at some point along the way I've heard called a cat ball. Now, when you think of a yarn ball, this is probably about the first thing that really comes to your mind, is an actual, rolling ball. And if you have cats or you know anything about cats, then you'll know that if you were to be working with this and just pulling right along, then of course that type of activity would interest a cat, and they'd want to play with that and probably throw it around on the floor and maybe get it into something that you don't want it to be in. But it does have its positives as well. I like to actually keep a couple of these available, because if you're getting ready to do a project but you're not sure if you want to make it like a great big thing, and actually learned a new stitch, or just want to try something a little bit different, it's easier to make a swatch and a little practice piece with something like this. And if for whatever reason you don't like it, it's easy to rip out and just wrap back around, versus if you were to say have something like this, be working from the center, and then all of a sudden decide that, well, maybe that's not what I want to do, or I've got to take a break now. It's a lot easier, instead of maybe doing something like this and wrapping it back around, or completely restarting the center pull ball. Of course, you could pull it out from the outside, but then it loses a little bit of the tension, and could become a little bit of a mess that way. So, like I said, it's nice to have a few of these around, just for the simple little practice swatches, or maybe you're not sure what project you want to do next. And it's a lot easier to rip something out and just hurry up and wind it up again, versus something like those in the back. So that's what we're going to do now. Find the end and get set up here real quick. Okay, so to get started on your cat ball, you just want to hold it, and I like to use 2 fingers. You can use 3, whatever feels better to you. And you just want to start to wrap it around that tail, and basically just keep wrapping around your fingers, probably about 20 to 30 times. Doesn't really matter, just know that pretty soon it's going to feel really tight on your fingers, and that's about the time that you'll want to go ahead and pull that off. You'll have like this little wad started, and what you'll want to do is find where your tail was and just start going perpendicular and wrapping around around the little wad. And just again, 20 to 30 times. Just you have to move your fingers out of the way a little bit. You don't want to go all the way to the end, because then it'll just flip off over there. Try to keep it fairly centered, but a little bit of wobble here and there is just fine. Okay, now once you start getting kind of that bow tie looking, that's when you'll want to start to work basically what would be corner to corner. And just do slight turns, just a little bit of a different angle. And pretty soon it'll start to overtake what was the remaining ends of that beginning wad. And it's just really subtle angle changes, just a little bit of a turn this far. And then you may want to actually, rotate the whole thing to either get a better grip or start working around a little easier. Kind of lost where I was. Basically, eventually, you'll get it to the point where it'll start taking on a more rounded ball shape. And then by then, you can start really getting going. And you'll want to actually probably rotate it a full 90 degrees every few wraps, I would say. Well, with it being only this big to start, probably only about 10 wraps, and then take it around that extra 90 degrees so that you're working around as much of the ball as you can. No. And a word of warning, you will get a little cramped up, especially right in this back area of your hand, just because it's kind of an odd way to hold your hand. Because you want to be able to hold it to keep it in place, but you also want to be able to need to be turning it, so it's a kind of complex if you look at it that way. But overall, again, still just 10 wraps, 10 or so wraps, and then take it to a new angle. See, and now that's pretty good size. So eventually, as you keep working and working, switch over back to what was the feeding end. And just continue on like that, and by the time you actually get to that size, you'll be able to see you can probably do up to 20 wraps before trying to change your angle. Like I said, once you have the actual ball established, it'll be a lot easier if you were doing a practice swatch or a gauge swatch, whatever it is we're getting ready to do. It's a lot easier to rip it out and roll it up like this than it is to start an entire new center pull ball, or to wrap it around like that. It's more of an aesthetic thing, I guess, that way. Okay, so now I'm just about at the end of what we started just a few minutes ago. And yeah, I've done this so many times I'm not even really counting. I'm just kind of going by what it looks like. Okay, and there's what was our beginning, is now our end.